Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome to Growin Through It, a podcast dedicated to bringing you clarity so that you can harness your curiosity and be the creator of your life. Hosted by me, Shanae Rowe.
Hello, lovely listeners, and welcome back to the podcast. I have the beautiful Jayme joining me today, and I'm super excited to have wholesome chats and for you guys to just love this episode and love what Jayme has to say because she's super inspiring. So let's jump into it. I wanted you to be my first guest on the podcast because I love seeing your Instagram and things like that. You're just super vulnerable and you just put your heart out there and say how you're feeling, and you're not afraid to share when you're having a bad day. And I think it's really encouraging to see, and it's a reminder that we don't have to be happy all the time and things like that. So my first question to you is, I want to know why you think it's important to be vulnerable and what it means, and share a little bit of that with us.
Okay, I love that. I love the intro. Thank you so much. I think that is really important. What I post on my Instagram with being vulnerable, it's so important to me because I think comparison, especially on social media, is huge. Social media is definitely a highlight reel, and that can be very hard to live in when you feel isolated in yourself already. So to me, being vulnerable just means showing up however you feel every day. Like you said, sometimes I show up and I'm not good. Sometimes I'll just be crying and I'm not good right now. But that's important for me to show up as, because I think if you just avoid it and if you pretend it doesn't exist, you don't actually get to move through it. You have to face it to move through it. I totally believe that. Being vulnerable is facing it to move through it, and being vulnerable is being true to yourself and actually having to face the truth rather than putting this illusion on it for yourself. And sometimes that can be really, really hard, but it's important to go through it. So like I said, you can move through it.
Yeah, I actually love what you said about you have to face what you're going in order to move through it, because I 100% feel the exact same way about it. And I noticed, I don't know if you've noticed as well, but so many people are just, they don't know how they feel and they avoid feeling certain things because we want to be happy all the time and we want to be having a good time. And sometimes it's really confronting to experience emotions like sadness or jealousy or envy or anything that's kind of tainted and feels a bit icky within us. And do you notice that too, that some people are just kind of switched off and they'd rather not share how they're feeling, whether those things are negative emotions and stuff, because it's too hard?
I definitely do notice that, especially in conversations these days. You're hey, how are you doing? They're good, I'm great, but they're not. And it's important to say that you're not, you know? I run away from things. I was telling my mom the other day, when I feel my life's not picture perfect, I mentally am running away. I'm pretending it doesn't exist. I'm doing what you said. I want to live my life as happy, but that's why I'm putting my foot down and I'm making myself be vulnerable and I'm making myself say, whoa. You need a second to actually process this. Yeah, I think it's so easy for us to run away from being vulnerable and to, what you said, just pretend we're all happy and everything because it's easier.
And definitely, I've seen that a lot with social media, and probably, a lot of people agree. It's so easy to pretend we're having a good time, especially with social media. And it's so easy to be having, a bad day and you're scrolling and, you see your friends or people that you don't know, seem to be having the most amazing time. And, it kind of makes us feel worse about what we're going through. And, we don't feel we should share how we're feeling, because we're I'm having such a bad time. These people seem to be doing so well. And there's almost this shame about not having a great time or not being the best mentally that you want to be.
Yeah, I absolutely feel that, what you're saying, when I post that I'm not doing well, in my head, I'm literally screaming. I'm no, you can't post this. You have to be on top of it. I'm telling myself I won't matter if I'm not happy, but that's why it's so important to be whoa.
And it's crazy as well because I see you post these things about how you're actually feeling, And I don't see any of that. I don't see the fear of you being like, oh my God, I'm not allowed to post this. I just see the post. And I think, holy fuck, Jayme is so brave and empowering. And I can't believe she's doing this. Like, this is amazing. Like, that's what I think. And sometimes we do forget that you have to break down a lot of your own limiting beliefs behind like just posting something vulnerable like that. We don't see that. Like, I don't see that in your post, and you probably don't see that in mine, but it is this like, we fear showing up online, being vulnerable, but it's like at the end of the day, I don't want people to think that they have to be happy all the time. I don't want people to think that I'm happy all the time, because it's unrealistic, and ebbing and flowing with the emotions that we're experiencing is normal and it's natural. And like, I want to share that online so people like feel comfortable with their experience and their journey, because it's not always high and amazing.
Yeah, no, I totally believe that. And there's a quote that I found last night that I love that I think really relates to that. And it's, you like taking care of people because it heals the part of you that needed someone to take care of you. And I think that's so important. Like, that's why I do what I do, because I wish I had someone like me in my life at that time. And I just want people to know that they're not alone, because you're already feeling, I know when I feel isolated and I feel horrible in myself, I isolate myself from myself. You know what I mean? I isolate myself from the highest version of myself that I want to be, and the person that wants to comfort myself. I isolate myself because I don't think I deserve that. But you do.
Yeah, and it's like, I always find as well when I'm having a hard time, I will isolate myself, and I get into this mindset of like, no one cares about me, I have no one to turn to, because like growing up, I didn't have anyone to turn to. So now I just like voluntarily isolate myself and think that there's no one there to help me. And that actually does so much worse for me, because like reaching out to someone and telling someone how you feel, sharing what's going on internally, like is so necessary when you're having a hard time. But it's like, when you've grown up thinking that there's no one there for you and that you have to be by yourself, then you just like slip into that. And it makes an experience so much harder, so much more isolating. And it takes a lot longer to work through when you're in your head so much. Because like, we need other people's advice and we need another perspective. And I actually experienced that like last week. I was in my head a lot, like what I was saying about like, when I went to Mushroom Valley and I just felt so insignificant and I knew it wasn't my voice. And there is so much almost shame about speaking up about that. It's like, I didn't want to tell my friend that that's what I was feeling, that I was feeling like isolated and insignificant, and just like if I left, no one would notice. But then talking about that, it's like I got a different perspective that was not my own, and sort of like somebody sharing like their perspective on my experience helped me be like, oh, like what I think isn't actually the truth. You know, like I'm not alone, and I am important to the people that care about me. And just like being able to talk about that and have someone reaffirm that to me is like so helpful. Because if I didn't go and talk to that friend, then I just would have kept thinking for probably days and days that I'm just like unworthy and that like no one cares about me.
Yeah, 100%. And I think as a kid as well, like when you did speak up, I don't know about you, but I always got told that you were looking for attention, and that's where that shame came from. But there's another quote that I thought of last night that relates to this, and I thought, people's projection is not my rejection, because it's like, you know how we go through stuff and sometimes you can project that when you're feeling really insecure. I know I did, especially in high school. I would project that. But my projection was not that other person's rejection, because that was completely on me. It wasn't on them as a person. So yeah, like what you were talking about, feeling insignificant. If someone makes you feel that, you've got to think their projection is not my rejection. Like that is solely on them. That is not on me.
Yeah, and a lot of the time it's not even like what someone is doing isn't, like how we perceive that isn't the truth. Because we have all this information that we've grown up believing, and so we interpret and experience however we want to. Like you can be in a group of people and you can, like they can be all chatting and having a wonderful time and you sort of feel like you're on the outskirts. But that's my perception. Like they're not intentionally trying to make me feel left out or make me feel insignificant, but my like life up to this point has made me think that this sort of environment means that I'm insignificant or that I'm unimportant. It's just our perception of a situation. It's not always the truth. And a lot of the time, like I've noticed so many times as an adult that what I perceive something as isn't even real. It's just like my tainted past experiences and beliefs coming through that make something what it isn't. The mind is so powerful like that, and it can, really catch you off guard.
I think that's exactly right what you said. Like, our mind controls everything. But that doesn't mean that everything our mind controls is true. Like what you were saying, that's so hard to face as well. To be like, no, I know what I'm talking about. Like, I totally believe myself. But sometimes you can't. Like, you have to let go of that part that you trusted. You know, there's this thing where it's like you hurt people first before they hurt you. Like, you leave people before they leave you. You know, like you think the worst of people before they think the worst of you. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like self-sabotaging. Like, you feel like you don't deserve like a wonderful friendship with someone, so you'll do anything that you can to like, sever that before you're able to be vulnerable with them. It's like you want to keep yourself at a distance and not open up, because opening up is so much scarier than just like being like, oh, they don't care about me. They're not like in my life anymore. Yeah. All the ways we self-sabotage, it's like, it's so hard when we want the best for ourselves, but our brain is like, it's too scary.
It's like, whoa. Slow down.
Telling people how I feel,
I don't think so. Literally though, yeah.
Yeah, it's such an interesting journey. Oh, I had a question for you, because, and it goes off of how, you're so open on social media and you share how you feel and things like that. And I wanted to know, I think you've sort of answered it a little bit, but have you always been like that, or is it something that you are like every single day working towards being more vulnerable? Like, does it come easy to be confident and sharing your voice? Because it looks easy. It looks like you don't give it a second thought. It genuinely does. It's like, oh, there's Jayme again telling everyone how she feels, like fucking get it. But like, have you taught yourself how to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had to teach myself how to do that. I have not always been as confident as I am. Like, I used to be a high school mean girl, actually. No one would believe this, but I was a high school mean girl because I was so insecure in myself. Like, I just wanted to bring people down to the level that I was. And then I started looking on social media, like, for other people to look up to, because you have this part of social media, you have this part, like, you have the uplifting part, and then you have the people telling you that you need to be like someone else to be loved. And I just found people like Spencer Barbosa, I definitely have to say, was a big inspiration. She taught that you have to treat yourself like someone you love. I was like, that's so powerful. And I realized I felt so much better when I was kind to myself than I wasn't kind to myself. And there's a lot of things that I think about when I'm not feeling confident in myself. And I think, how would my friend treat me if I was like this? But if I was in my friend's body and I was my friend and they were feeling like this, how would I treat them? And then I realized it wasn't, them that I had a problem with, it was myself that I had a problem with. And the only way to help that is to be kind, because, you grow so much more from love than you do from hate. I feel like you shrink with hate, but you grow from love.
Yes, I love that. That's been like a big learning experience for me as well, of like the power of love and what it can do for you, because like I grew up in an environment where there was like no love, or if there was love, it was conditional. Like, it had all of these rules attached to it. And just like going out and seeing the world and seeing that there are people that just exist to be kind and compassionate and love other people, it's like, it's amazing. And the effect that can have on your life and the relationships you have is like incredible. And like what you were saying, like, it's so much more powerful than hate. So much more, because like hate just makes us victimize ourselves, like where everyone's the issue and, there's all these problems in our life. But when we come from a place of love, it's like that self-awareness and like wanting to give and accepting people as they are.
Yeah, like there was someone at work last year, this is my other work, who I love, but she was getting angry at me for something that I didn't do properly or something. And instead of being like, oh, fuck her, like, I can't believe she would do that, I went up to her and I said, I really apologize about what I did. Like, I'm trying my best, can you help me to move forward? And that helps so much more than just having that negative attitude of, what a bitch, like, I can't believe she would do that. Like, actually admitting, okay, maybe I didn't do that. Like, and like what we're saying, being vulnerable and opening ourselves up. Like, yeah, love is just incredible.
Yes, having conversations, hard conversations with people, communication, like, it's such a foreign thing for me. And I think so many of us are taught that if we have an issue, keep it to yourselves. Like, don't bring it up. Don't, like, confront anyone. Don't say how you feel. But so many times it's like, you need to have those conversations with people, and it doesn't have to be a really negative, mean conversation. You can just bring up your issue to someone from a place of love and say how you're feeling and not put any blame on anyone, and just be like, this is what I'm feeling, and this is, like, your role in it, and this is my role in it. Like, how can we fix it? And when you do have those conversations, like, you are able to move through whatever the fuck's going on so much easier, like, than just keeping it to yourself and then, like, putting, the person that you're having an issue with, like, blaming them and thinking so negatively of them. Like, a lot of the time it's just, like, this miscommunication between, like, you and them. And how to get through that is to have a loving conversation and not, like, talk behind someone's back or hold a grudge or whatever. Yeah, like, everything from a place of love is so healing, and I love it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like what you're talking about with a grudge, like, obviously I held a huge grudge with my dad actually for a long time, and it took a heavy, heavy toll on me. But this year I decided, from a place of love, I'm ready to move and I'm ready to heal through that. That doesn't mean that, with love, I think it's not conditional, but you can choose your peace with it. And so, I didn't, we're not besties, but I had a conversation. I was like, I see you as a human now. I don't see you as this monster that you were, but I understand that you have stuff that you're working through as well. Do you know what I mean? So, there's a little Facebook ad I saw, and it said, a 4-year-old was asked, how do you learn more about love? And he said, start with the person that you hate. Because I thought that was so powerful, because you forget, but even the person that you really don't like has been through stuff. Like, everyone has a story. And if you treat that story with more love than you do with hate, like I said, when you're soft, I feel like you just work through things a lot easier.
And it is hard to transition from that, like, hating and blaming the world to a place of love, because when you are coming from that place of love, it means that you have to acknowledge things about yourself that aren't, like, the best. You have to do a lot of inner work, I guess, in a sense, to realize your flaws and confront them, and then give yourself the love and compassion so that you can then address all the relationships and things in your life from a place of love. Like, you have to start with yourself. But I think that's why a lot of us just kind of avoid having all of these, like, loving interactions with people, because it's a lot easier to approach things with hate, because, no one wants to put in the work to acknowledge the parts of themselves that are kind of flawed. And you have to do that in order to have a loving perspective on everything. Like, and it's hard, it's difficult.
Yeah, people just want the bright side, but they don't want to look at their shadow side that's trying to be like, hey, I'm screaming at you to teach something, like, I promise I'm going to help you.
Oh, I love that. Moving on from that, I want to hear about your visa qualms. Like, before we started recording this episode, you talked a little bit about, when you went over to the US and all the issues that you were having with that and what it brought up for you. So please tell me more about that. I want to hear it.
So in 2022, I did a summer camp, and shout out to, like, my friends if they're listening. I freaking love them and I miss them. But like I was talking about, in 2021, I had just finished my entire season of Scouts. Like, I did it for 5.5 years. And that took such a huge mental toll on me. By the time I finished Scouts, I was believing that I was breathing wrong. Like, that is how I was treated, and that is how I felt every single day. So when I got to my 2022 summer camp, I still had that mindset, and I was still stressing out. And then I met my friends, and I met my boss who taught me in a loving way, like, just how to lead with love rather than with fear, right? Because in Scouts, I was taught by someone very close to me that it's better to be feared than to be liked. Like, it's better to have people fear you than to be looked at with love, because then you're seen as weak.
That is the worst advice I've ever fucking heard. That's fucking delusional.
That was my life. Do you know what I mean? Like, and no wonder I still have to work through that shit. Like,
That's actually fucked up, and it's so sad that there are people who genuinely think that that is the way to live. Like, you know, I've got to be big and strong and people have to be afraid of me, rather than like building all these wonderful connections with people because you love them and they love you, and there's that mutual respect and understanding and admiration there. It's so insane.
it's crazy. But then I went in 2022 and I realized just the power of love, like we've been talking about. I was like, holy shit, like I think I found my place. And I got my beautiful kids, like I got to be a leader for them, and I got to be the adult that I wanted. And I was like, this is really healing. Like, I love that I don't have to keep the things that I was taught if they don't resonate with me. And I can be that place of love that I've always wanted to be. So I had the most amazing, incredible experience in 2022. And then I chose to do a different camp in 2023. And that was just because what I did with Scouts, and I think it started off really great, and then it was really, really horrible for the end of it. And I think that's because I kept trying to relive the past, and I kept trying to recreate it. So I didn't want to do that with my camp because it was so special and so healing in itself. I was like, I just want to go and do something different, and I want to see if it was my camp that made the difference or if it was me. Like, I was just trying to figure a lot of stuff out in my life. And I also love to travel, and I really wanted to go to Canada. So I went to Canada and I did this whole new different experience, whole new different camp. And it was not a very good camp. It was, you know, I had a really rough time there, but I learned a lot from myself and a lot from the people around me who, again, they were like my family and they still are. I talk to them to this day. But I realized from losing my camp in 2022 and not going back, I realized that I actually loved it and how much I gained from it and how much I appreciated it. You know, like, we appreciate so much when we lose it. Like, we don't know how much it means to us until it's lost. And that's how I felt about my camp. So I did everything I could to get back this year. And then I went for my interview to get my visa, which normally is very easy, and it was denied. So that was really tough because I was faced with a new challenge I'd never faced before. And then I had to go for a whole new interview, and it was denied because they thought I had problems in another country that I didn't. It was, again, a miscommunication, and it was at a time where I felt like I didn't have a voice. Like, this person wasn't listening to me, and I didn't have a voice, so I couldn't do anything about it. And it was tough. Like, when I went for my second interview, I brought all of my evidence, every single thing they could have thought of I brought. And they said to me, I can't trust your word, so you're going to have to wait until, you know, this goes through the processing that it needs to go through. And I waited for 2 months before I heard anything about if I could go or if I couldn't. And what was going through my head every day was, if I don't get back to camp, no one's going to care about me anymore. Like, I'm not going to have a place anymore. And that's so wrong. Like, that's so wrong. But that's how I was feeling. And so with not actually getting my visa straight away, I was like, oh my God, like, it's happening, you know? In my life, I'm very used to when I have something good, it goes, because, you know, that's how I've grown up. That's what I believe and what I'm trying to unlearn. But I was just seeing all these similar patterns. I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to go to camp. My kids aren't going to remember me. Like, my friends aren't going to care. I'm not going to matter if I go back next year. Like, this is the year to go back, or else I can't go back again. Like, no one's going to care. And so it was 2 months of waiting, 2 months of feeling like, if I don't go to camp, I don't want to be anywhere. Like, and when I finished work, I still hadn't gotten my visa. But I had taken time off work. So I was like, you know what? I'm really upset right now. I can't do my job because we look after kids. So I didn't want to, you know, put that on them. and be so upset all the time. But every day, this was my routine. I would wake up, I would eat my bowl of Nutri-Grain. Shout out to Nutri-Grain. Love Nutri-Grain. But I would get out of the house, I would go and do one thing, and then I would come back home. I would like check my phone. Again, social media played a huge part. Like I would see my friends living their life being super happy, or I would look at my application, see nothing had changed, and I would cry. I would cry from probably, I don't know, let's say 11:30 a.m. till 11:30 p.m. And I would just be so upset, and I would tell myself that no one cares. Like I can't open up to someone because one, they can't help me. Like what are they going to do? You know what I mean? But I would just go through like, you're worthless, and if you don't go back to camp, no one's going to care about you ever again. Like all of this stuff was happening, and I was feeling it so much. Like I genuinely was at a place where I was like, if I don't go back to camp, I don't want to be anywhere. Like I don't want to be in the world. Like I'm done. You know what I mean? And I was thinking about I could go on travel. I was like, no, because if I go on travel, like I can't go back to camp. Like everything revolved around camp. And it was really tough, you know?
Why do you think that you put so much of your worth into like going back to camp or not? Because that's what it sounds like. It sounds like you felt like you were not important, that you didn't have a place in the world unless you went to camp. Like, why do you think you put so much of your self-worth into being like accepted back into the country, like to get your visa to do that specific thing?
I think it's because of the way I felt in 2022 and how much healing had occurred. And I think definitely a lot of my worth comes from other people. And I'm unlearning that, of course. But a lot of my worth, I have to admit it, like, you know, I'm admitting that shadow side. A lot of it comes from other people's validation and other people's love. And that's how I felt at camp. But I just like knowing that I'm important. I'd never felt more important in my life than when I was at camp. And that couldn't have been more true because I got back. I did get back. Yay. But I put in a lot of work to get back. And I think it came up as a lesson because, like what you're saying, I put a lot of my worth based on other people. And also, I put a lot of, like, I want every single thing to go to plan, but my plan. Like, I don't want it to go to the universe's plan. I don't want what's better. Like, I want my plan. And when I don't get my plan, like, I think, oh my God, my life's over. Like, it's ruined. But it actually turned out way better because, like I said about my dad before, I've actually done some healing, and I went to lunch with him because we had a huge thing happen in our family. I was like, you know what? Like, maybe I'm ready to heal from love. And while I was going through that dark place, love got me through. Like, I had friends that was checking on me all the time. I had friends that were like, I can't help but know that I'm here if you just need to cry. Like, I saw that when I was vulnerable on my Instagram, I remember I posted, and it was my breaking point. And I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I'm really struggling. And friends were like, Jayme, you are so strong, and I know you're going to get through this. But thank you for being vulnerable, because I feel like also we lose so many people because they isolate themselves and because they've been taught being vulnerable as being weak, and you don't want to be seen as weak. And I think we lose so many people because people don't speak up because they're so scared of what other people are going to say or what other people are thinking. But that's why it's so important to be vulnerable, because if those people choose to leave you because you were vulnerable, then they weren't your people in the first place. But if you are vulnerable and you lose those people, I feel like you gain better people. You gain people more in alignment. You know what I mean?
Because you putting yourself out there, you being vulnerable and speaking your truth, you might lose a fucking lot of people, but you're setting your standards. You're saying to the world, I am showing up like this. I'm going to be my truest self. I'm going to share exactly how I'm feeling. And I, in return, expect that back. Like, I'm not settling for anything less. I am inviting all these deep, vulnerable connections into my life because that's what I deserve. I deserve to have beautiful conversations with people. I'm showing up like this, so you do the same. And like, you're leading the way. You're allowing others to be vulnerable with themselves as well, but you're also like setting the tone for what you expect in your life. And I think that touches on like life's plan, like what you were saying, like you don't want to listen to what life has to, you know, offer you. I think a lot of the time we are like stuck in our preference and stuck in like how we want our life to go. And like you were saying, like we have all of these expectations and we base things off of past experiences, like what you were saying about camp. You're like, that was so amazing, I want to recreate that. Yeah. And then so we get stuck holding these expectations about how we want our future to go, and we just completely disregard all of these other beautiful moments and opportunities that come to us because we're like, no, I want to recreate this. I want it to go like this, and nothing else matters. Yeah. And yeah, it just sounds like such a powerful lesson for you to learn that, you know, you can't lead your life with expectations. Like you have to let go of control. You have to let the universe guide you, like you really do, because that's when the most beautiful things happen. Like for you going to camp that first time and having such a wonderful experience, like you had no idea what was going to happen. And so you just let things come into your life.
That's exactly right. But then I'm really grateful, even though it made me sad not to go to camp last year, I'm really grateful I didn't, because I don't think I would have appreciated it as much as I did this year because I lost it. You know what I mean? And coming back this year, I had a plan. I was like, I'm going to do this at camp. Like, you know, I had my plan and then it didn't work. So I got to camp and I just let things come. I was like, thank God I did that. And another thing I was going to say, one of the biggest lessons I learned, something that got me through it every time, is my mom always said, you know, life is like the waves. Like sometimes they're really high, sometimes they're really low, but you've got to ride it out. And I thought of like this little quote, and it's, you know, you can't control the waves, but you can learn how to surf. And through that time, I learned that I think, what is it? You know, along with time, you become a better surfer, like with the practice that you have. Because I think about this situation I went through this year, how I stuck by myself and I got my visa and I did it. And I didn't give up. I tried twice and I didn't give up, even though a lot of people who I was talking to were like, Jayme, I would have given up ages ago. Like, you know what I mean? 2 years ago, had this have happened, I wouldn't have gone to camp. Like, I wouldn't have tried. I would have been so scared of being rejected again or whatever it was. So I think, and I want to get a tattoo of that. I love my tattoos, but I want to get a tattoo of that.
Definitely. I love that analogy of waves, and I always like think back to that whenever I'm having a good experience or a bad experience, because it is always like we're ebbing and flowing, we're, you know, experiencing wonderful things, like so much connection and community and just things that make us feel so happy. And then like all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, I've never felt worse in my life. All these things are like kicking me in the face right now, and I have so much to work through and stuff that comes up. And I 100% agree. It's like when you first start to notice like the good and the bad, it's really hard to kind of like, you know, get up on your surfboard. You're like, how do I just figure this out? How do I make myself happy again? How do I not be so depressed for so long? But the more experiences you have, the more you learn that life is just highs and lows. It is the waves, and you do have to ride it. And like the more experiences you have, the better that you are at riding those waves. Like you don't stay in the shit of it for as long. And as well, like it genuinely does. And I know it's like so overused, but it makes you appreciate, you know, the happy moments more.
So much.
But
Absolutely.
it does. It really does. Like so many times I've been having, you know, I'm like, wow, I can't believe this is my life. I love all these beautiful people. I love what I'm doing. And there is a thought of like, I'm so grateful for this. And I'm really excited to see what happens next, because it's probably going to be something that I have to learn. It's probably going to be a hard lesson to work through, and I'm ready for it. And it just like prepares you for that hard time. And I think that contributes to like learning how to surf, because when you really appreciate those beautiful moments and you're prepared for what's next, but you're not like thinking about, oh, I'm having such a fun time, like something bad's going to happen. It's like, I know this is how life goes. I know there are good moments. I know there are bad, and I know I can get through it.
Yeah. which is exactly why we need to release control, which is so big, I think, for my life, because obviously travel is my life. I love it, but I have a lot of control in my life. I want this to go this to go there, you know. But when I'm older, like I'm only 21, and when I'm older and I want things to go the way I want it to go, I'm going to remember this lesson, and then it didn't go the way I wanted, and it went way better than I expected. And I'm going to be grateful that I went through this while I was 21 rather than, let's say 51. Like, I'm learning to release control now so I can live a life full of so much more abundance rather than so much stress. Like, it is so stressful trying to control everything.
It is, and it's like, it's not enjoyable. It's not enjoyable. Like, the moment I realize I'm trying to control things too much, I'm like, why? Why do I have to have life go how I want it to? Why don't I just let things flow and see what happens? Like, it's so much more enjoyable. But like, when you grow up in like a chaotic environment, the only thing that makes you feel safe is having control of like planning things so meticulously, because like you're making yourself busy. There's something for you to do. You feel like you are contributing to your life in some way. But then you realize that that actually is like self-sabotaging in the future. It's like, you can't plan anything out. Like, just let life take you on its beautiful little journey. Like, you will be so surprised with how wonderful it can be, because all the beautiful things happen when we don't expect they're going to happen.
Yeah. And I think also as a kid, like, I don't know about you, but I didn't have a lot of control in my life. That got taken away from me. So as an adult, I think I seek control because I can at least, control my safety and how I feel. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think I said the other day on my Instagram that I've been really struggling with my comfort of fear, because that is safe to me. Fear is safe because I'm used to living with that, rather than my calm and knowing that everything's happening like it's meant to. Like, that scares the fucking shit out of me, to admit that I don't have any control over what's happening in my life. I can only control my reaction. Sometimes that's a lot harder than trying to control my life, is controlling my reaction.
Yeah, it's always about, you are in control of yourself, of how you perceive things, of how you react to things. Like, try not to control the big picture of how you want life to go, but just focus on yourself.
But I'm grateful I made it back to camp. Like, it was the best experience ever, and it was so healing, because I got to do that healing with my family first, and then I think that made me feel a lot more open when I went to camp, and I got to open myself up to a lot more, because I was used to so much rejection with that, so I totally closed myself off to lots of parts of myself. When I went to camp, I felt so much more open, and I was just more vulnerable, but also I was more connected to myself, and that made my camp journey incredible. Like, I had amazing, beautiful, incredible friends, but I also had myself, and that's something I didn't have in 2022. I looked for that in other people, and I found that in other people, so I didn't need myself. But in 2024, I had myself, and that was really important.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's like, in hindsight, you can see the value of that really hard experience now. But like, when you're in it, you're like, why is this happening to me? The world is against me. I just want to go to camp. But now looking back, you're like, it had to happen like that. I had to learn these things in this order so that I could come home to myself, that I could find safety in myself and be my own best friend and show up for myself.
Yeah, and I remember like journaling on my birthday. I was at the beach and I went to the sunrise, and it was great. And I wrote, there is an older version of you holding you up right now and being so proud of you, because they know how it's going to go. Like, maybe I don't know exactly what happened for them, but they have already lived this. So they're holding you in this with so much love and compassion, because you're going to look back and realize how hard it was and how well you did. Like, that's amazing.
I had a very similar experience while journaling as well the other day, of like just going through the motions and going through something difficult to process. And it's just having this thought that a version of me in the future is helping me right now. And it kind of sounds crazy, but it's like, I am able to get through this because a future version of me is helping me through it. And it's the same with us now, looking back at like who we were as a kid. And it's like we're giving that version of ourselves all of this love and compassion and being like, you know, like, I'm here for you. We're being the parent that we wish we had as a kid. And it's almost like maybe that's why I was able to get through that as a kid, because me right now is helping that old version of myself. You know, it's quite paradoxical, and it's kind of trippy to think about, like, you are getting through your hard times because there is a future version of you giving yourself love and all the support that you need.
Yeah. And that's where it goes straight back to. It's that love. Because when you have that hatred, you shut yourself off and you isolate yourself. But when you have that love, you're like, I'm not doing good. Like, I do need someone. And yes, you can be that for yourself, but it's okay to ask other people as well. I think that's how you make those connections. And that's how you have meaningful connections. Like with my amazing, incredible, beautiful kids, like I missed them so much. And when I went back this year, not only did they remember me, they were so grateful to see me, because I think I was open in 2022 and I was vulnerable, and maybe they weren't used to that. And, you know, it draws. My mom has always said since I was a kid, when you are yourself and when you are authentic and true, you are magnetic. And the people that are meant to find you, they're drawn to you. And I'm just so grateful that I can be that person of love for people in my life that I don't even realize I am that person for.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it is that law of attraction. It's like when you allow yourself to be authentic, to be vulnerable, you are attracting people who are the same and who want the same. And that's how you build those really fulfilling relationships. It is by showing up for yourself, being yourself, and fearlessly, I shouldn't say fearlessly because it is really scary, fiercelessly, like showing up for yourself. And yeah, those people that are on the same page and that want the same thing, they are magnetic. They're drawn to you. You're drawn to each other, and you can build these really beautiful relationships with people, friendships, you know, romantic relationships, just connections with people, because you're both dedicating, you know, that vulnerability. I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it does. But yeah.
And I also, what I love, like, about the whole, you were saying about camp and being yourself around those kids, I find it so, like, important to be yourself around kids, because, like, me thinking back to my childhood, I didn't feel like I could be myself because I didn't have a role model in my life who was just, like, courageously doing what they wanted to do and being brave and being loud and being authentic. So it's like, right now, and you probably feel the same, it's like showing up as yourself for those kids, as a role model for them, is so freaking magical, because, like, we're showing them that they can be themselves, that they don't have to be ashamed for all the parts of themselves, because we're just here, like, we're big kids. You know, we're just trying to get through and have as much fun and, you know, just be ourselves to the best of our ability, and we're really helping these kids feel safe in themselves. Like, it's so powerful.
And you're always taught as a kid, like, it's better to be, like, with people than with no one. But we're not taught that quality over quantity. And also, I'd much rather sit with myself and be in good company than sit with a big group and be in company that makes me feel like shit. Like, I've got to work through that again. Like, do you know what I mean?
I don't want to deal with this.
Yeah, because I know high school especially is so hard. I had such a tough time in high school. And like I said, I was a mean girl. Like, what the fuck? But I only stayed a mean girl until I was like, holy shit, like, I need to change. Like, this is not healthy. This is not good. And I let all of the fear of what people were thinking, and I totally, like, changed into who I wanted to be. And I lost some people, yes, but I lost the people that weren't meant for me. And I gained the people that were attracted to that magnet of being myself. And I'm still friends with those people, but most importantly, I just remember the impact that still has on me to this day, and the pride I feel for myself. And while, you know, the high school mean girl, I just feel love for her because she really needed that. And I feel sad for her, and I'm working through that, but I know that, you know, she's working on that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I have like a question for you, and it's something that I've, like, been thinking about lately. It's like, when we were in high school, we were not great people. Like, I'm sure, like, anyone who's listening can, like relate to. You just weren't, like, sometimes you said things that were mean for no reason, or you acted in ways where you took a moment and you were like, why the fuck did I do that? Why did I say that? Like, why was I acting like that? Do you struggle with, like, now as you are and like you're being this vulnerable person, do you ever think about like what those people think of you, like who knew you in school?
Yeah, sometimes, like, sometimes I do struggle with that. I know in parts where I have been really negative or been mean to someone, I struggle with a lot of guilt. And I'm like, oh, fuck, like, shit, I hope they're okay. Do you know what I mean? But, yeah, I definitely struggle with what they think of me. Even some parts of my family members, like, I wasn't very nice to them as a kid, and I think that's why the relationship is how it is now. And I feel sad for that, yeah. But as an adult, I can do that hard thing, and I can have that talk, and I can say, you know what? I know I treated I know I treated you like shit, and I'm so sorry. Like, please know that I want to move forward, and I would like to just heal little by little. Like, do you know what I mean? As an adult, I can take responsibility for my actions, because as a kid, it's hard to, because you're still learning.
As kids, we're always like kind of expected to do the right thing, and that if we do the wrong thing, we're in trouble. And so we don't want to take accountability for our actions if we've hurt people or done the wrong thing, because we don't want to get in trouble. But like as an adult, you do like have to look at yourself and take accountability and be like, how I acted was horrible, and like I don't want that person to have this tainted image of me, of who I was when I was 14 or 15 or 16, being an absolute brat. So like you said, like we have to have those conversations. We have to admit to ourselves that we weren't the nicest, or we weren't acting as ourselves. We put on this persona because we wanted to be liked more than we wanted to be ourselves. Yeah, we have to take accountability for that, and we have to have those hard conversations because it's like now with the knowledge that we have, we want to mend those relationships, and we want to just, I don't know if it's a way of like proving ourselves, of being like, you know, I've grown and I'm not that person anymore. I don't know if it's for our ego or just for like peace of mind. But yeah, we do have to have those conversations with people, I feel. Yeah.
I always think of the quote like, you know, you never know when your last conversation is with someone. I always want to have peace over a last conversation, even if it's a fight. Do you know what I mean? I want to know that what I've said isn't, I think there's a difference in putting someone down and putting someone in their place. Like if someone treats you like shit, absolutely put them in their place, but don't put them down.
That's amazing. Yeah, I really like that perspective on it. Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
I think it's so important. And like I say, I always try now to just lead from love and just lead from not necessarily gentleness, but just peace. I always want to be feeling peace because like we said, we don't have control, but we can control how we react to other people. And I know no matter who I meet, I'm making a difference in their life. You don't know whose life you have in your hands. Yeah. And one negative thing could just be the absolute catapult for their life.
And it's like you always want to leave an interaction with someone knowing that you showed up as yourself. You weren't acting out of, I don't know, like wanting to be liked and accepted. You were just yourself. And you want them to recognize that within you. And like no one wants to leave an interaction with someone being like, oh, I wish I didn't say that, or I wish I, you know, didn't do this thing. It's like, yeah, always just try and be yourself and leave with that sort of satisfaction that you did the best, you showed up as yourself, and like there's nothing more.
And I had a really great moment of like growth, of knowing like, holy shit, I actually did grow. On a night I had the other night, I was on a date with the guy from the movies, and the movie finished, and then there was this guy, like this old man, and he had these little Barbies, and he was taking a photo of the Barbies like at the cinemas or whatever on a couch, and the guy looked at me and he was like, you know, made a weird face, but I said, actually, I know that it's easier to laugh at this person and to think, what the fuck are they doing with their life? Like, that's so weird. But I said, you know what? I'm going to think that it's the best. And I'm going to think maybe he has 2 daughters that he has to like have custody over with a partner or something. And maybe he just took a photo and was like, hey, I brought you here. Do you know what I mean? Like, we never know what's going on in someone's life. So I think it's so easy to laugh at someone and to think the worst of them, but we don't know what's going on in their life. So I'd prefer to just think the best and just think, you know what, if that's going to help them, like, good on them. Like, yeah, because I used to be someone that would laugh with other people, like, at the expense of someone else's life, but I don't agree with that anymore. It makes me feel really icky.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I love it. We've been talking for so long, so I think to finish it up, I want to hear from you just some like advice for people who are having a hard time being vulnerable or being themselves. Like, what have you found has helped you like be vulnerable? What has helped you be able to show up for yourself? What are some things that you can like suggest to people? They're wanting to be more themselves, but they're struggling with the fear of like being themselves in front of people because it's scary.
It's totally scary. Jesus, I totally get it. I think what has really helped me in my thing has been journaling, because I can be truthful with myself and write it down. Once I write it down, I can look at it and I can dissect it. Do you know what I mean? Like last year I wrote, no, like everyone's mad at me because I didn't go to camp last year. That's not true. Like I wrote it down. I was like, who the fuck told me this? Like, first off, no one told me this. Like fear is, what is it? False evidence appearing real. That is my fear of other people. Like that is their fault. Like my false evidence. If everyone hates me right now, they think the outfit I'm wearing is stupid. It's like, who told you that? Like nobody. So I think first off, it was writing it down, how I felt. And then it was changing that story. Like if you don't like what you have written, then you can change your story. And I actually wrote a little journaling like affirmation thing before, and I write, how do I feel? Because it's important to acknowledge how you're feeling so you can move forward. And then how do I want to feel? Because you can choose to choose again. And then you write, what's one thing I can do to feel closer to this feeling? And something that I did when I was trying to be kinder to myself is I would write, what is one moment today where I was proud to be my friend? Like what was a moment where I wanted to be my friend today? Because, you know, we've got to be our own best friend, but it's important to have that evidence of, oh shit, I'm actually a really fucking cool person. Yes. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I would just say surround yourself with people who uplift you and who make you feel celebrated, not tolerated, because I'm still going through shit. Like, from when I was 14 to 21 now, and I'm still dissecting all of the beliefs that other people tried to put on me and like all of those negative words. I'm still working through that because I chose to be around these people even though they made me feel like shit. Like if your gut's telling you that someone's not making you feel good, you don't have to stay with them. Like being alone is not being lonely. You can feel lonely in a big group of people. I think that's really important. Yeah, that would be my advice is like start by being honest with yourself. That's the hardest thing. You just have to do that one step. And small movements are big steps.
A step in the direction of where you want to go is still, like, even if it's tiny, it's still getting you to where you want to go. Yeah, literally just like popping your foot out and being like, oh, testing the waters is still progress.
Like this is a step for me. Like doing this podcast, I'm so grateful to be part of this experience.
And it's so, like, it's a step for me as well. Like getting someone on, you're the first person and it's like, it's scary, but it's like, I want to do this. I want to share like my voice with another person. I want you to feel like safe and comfortable sharing your experiences, being vulnerable. Like it's so powerful, just being vulnerable, being ourselves. And eventually, like, the more that we do it, the easier it becomes. Absolutely. When you start, it's like, oh, my God, you have all this fear and judgment coming in. Like, how dare I be myself in front of people? And the more you do it, the more safe and comfortable you feel. And it's like what I was saying earlier, like, you have to change that baseline normal for yourself. And it's like, I don't want my baseline to be fearing being myself. I want it to be feeling like I'm allowed to take up space and be confident and be myself in a room full of people.
Absolutely. And then it's also remembering that you are your person for your entire life. Like there are going to be people that come in and out of your life, but you are your person. So it's important to be that person for yourself and not look for that in other people all the time, because they're not going to fulfill that. Yeah. You're the only person that can fulfill your life. And I think when we're so scared of losing people, we've just got to remember that we gain ourselves. And I think that's the most important thing you could ever gain, is yourself, because you're not actually alone when you have yourself. Because you're creating your life. Like, no one's paying my fucking rent. Like, I'm doing that myself.
Oh my God, I love that. I think that's like such the perfect little piece of advice and motivation and inspiration to end this episode on. So thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
It's been amazing. And yeah, I've really loved having these chats. And even just getting to know you a bit more and, you know, sharing the space of vulnerability. It's been such a pleasure. But yes, that is all from the episode, I guess. So I'm going to leave my lovely listeners how I always leave them every week, which is the world is waiting for you. So get on out there and enjoy your big, beautiful life.
Beautiful.